Yes, hello guys, and welcome to another video. Today I'll be talking about how to pass the FIFA Agent Exam. As you can see, I have to adjust my camera a little bit. Okay, yes, it's a little bit afternoon here, and it's strange. Actually, I'm not out of the house or doing certain things, but I'm here actually trying to help you guys on this. So the first thing I would like to say is we are going to run through a structural approach, and then we look at what's the situation or what is the thing that you have to do to pass the exam. So the first thing I'm going to look at is, if you want to pass the exam, you have to have a structural approach. It's an exam. I don't want to frighten you guys as I speak here. It's an exam that is quite tricky and difficult, but you always have to have a structural approach. And with a structural approach, it is easy to go. So let's look at the key things on people who have passed the exams after doing research and also after teaching people on how to pass the exam. What are the key things that people do? So the first thing is, it's not I don't want to say that if you don't have a study, that if you don't study with someone you can't pass the exam, but it's rare. Most people who pass the exam always study, because most of the time, what do you guys think is the pass rate of the exam? Let's say if 100 people write the exam, just an example, 2, 10, 5, 7 might pass. Those kind of numbers are always the numbers we hear, because many people don't know that the exam is quite difficult. I remember taking the exam actually with my friend also. I'll give you this example. When I was saying that, I was telling him that, okay, I would like to join a study group to take the exam. And he told me, well, the exam, because it's a multiple choice question, I'm just going to go and do my guesswork and see how it goes. And when we got into the exam hall, when you're afraid, you're quite comfortable. You don't need to, after the exam, you don't need to revise your answers or whatsoever. You don't need to revise all those things. Or you don't need to check what you have done, because you already know, have you passed or not. So actually, after we wrote, I was quite comfortable. I've passed, but normally you just have to sit quiet and listen and wait for the result. And when the result came out, actually, of course, I knew I would pass, but when I spoke to him, he said no, it was difficult. Then we were having this chat again and saying that, okay, well, you just go again you go again next time, but this time try to get a study person that you can study with, because the rules and regulation have changed now, and FIFA is offering hosting the exam just once, and if you missed to pass it this year, you go the next time again. And that is also how your life on the agent, on FIFA agent, it keeps going ahead. So each year, know that you're wasting time rather than sacrificing and doing something. But anyways, if I was to pass the exam, or if I was to write the exam, or giving advice for people to write the exam, this is how, or this is what I will do. So first, I will go through a system. Let's say I'll say, okay, what are the key topics that this exam needs, and what does the exam really require? First, before looking at the materials, to be an agent is something that you have to know football agent law. You have to also know the regulation, because you are dealing with human beings, and also you're dealing with financial situation. So if you don't know a lot of these things, you're also going to be in big problem, because there's a lot of money involved in the agency. I'll give an example. So let's take, for example, an agent handling Ronaldo or Messi or Neymar or all those players transfer, because this is the license you're trying to get to handle those kind of players. So, and do you know the money involved here? Millions of euros involved in this kind of things. So normally FIFA makes the exam more difficult, because you have to be very educated to be able to have the exam. To be able to handle those situations, because you are going into a pressure environment. Don't get me wrong, it's also a nice environment, because everybody loves this kind of job that you go to. Let's take, for example, you go to scout a player, you sit in the stadium, maybe in Liverpool Stadium, Manchester United Stadium, or whatsoever stadium you might be sitting to watch to scout that player, and the player is playing, you're enjoying the situation, the game, and also you're scouting the player. All these kind of things, many people don't have this kind of life. So that's why I see most people that you are writing the exam try to sacrifice for this exam. Try to sacrifice and get it, because once you get it and you start doing, because once you have a license, you start talking to people. Once people start respecting and looking at you, that okay, you can change their story actually. Because now, let me say, when I speak to people or send messages to people or to players, When they see my license number, they know that also I can change the story. They say, okay, if this guy has the right connection, he can change my story. So you can be that person. So if you think this is your future and that you like football enough, then you have to sacrifice for this. So that is just a little bit of advice I wanted to give people. And each day, I'm going to say, each day, when I wake up in the morning, the reason I speak about this to you people is not that I'm trying to teach people as well, but also I'm trying to also educate, keep putting myself in a situation that I should keep revising the, how do you call it, the constitution, so that anytime I'm doing a deal, like any other deal I've done, anytime I'm doing a deal, I should always be up to date. So most of the time, I'm always up to date. When I'm speaking with other agents, they look at me, they say, this guy, you're always current. But it's because each day, passing day, because I really love this, I always go towards, towards reading a new article, or the amount of stories I've learned, what has happened before. Before just getting, for example, like the case, the Mino Raiola and the Pogba situation, transfer. Just because I've been reading enough, a lot, I know those kind of what deals and what has been happening in those kind of deals. So you get to also know a lot of things as long as it's your passion and you enjoy the stuff. So, but anyways, long story short, let's go back to what brought you here to this video, which is about what are the strategies you can use to pass the exam. So the first thing I'll look at is the FIFA Football Agent Regulation. The FIFA Football Agent Regulation is a part of the study material that is not really bulky, but when you hear the name FIFA Football Agent Regulation, it shows that it mostly targets you, the agents. It targets what we call representative agreement, all those things that you have to be doing. So for example, a representative agreement with the player, how you sign the agreement, all those kind of little things concerning football agent. What are your services, and how do you get to register the exam? How do you pass the exam? All those details are also in that place. So, but this is where majority of the question comes. So that's why I started with it. This is where majority of the question comes, the FIFA football agent regulation. So if you're studying, you have to be very aware to know a lot of this topic. It's not that bulky. Of course, it's bulky, but you have to try to read this a lot and know it to your fingertips. And when I say know it to your fingertips, you have to also translate it to real life situation. Let's say if they ask you a question, you have to imagine the scenario, because what FIFA does with the question is they give a question, but they make it also in a real life situation, so that you can try to solve it. Because after passing the exam, you will be handling players, yeah, whether it's transfer from a continent to another continent, how you can deal with that, whether it's registering your players through the system, how can you handle that also? Whether if your player is in trouble, where do you take the player to? These are things you have to know. So it's almost like a real life. If your player is in trouble, which organization do you have to contact? If there's a disciplinary case for your player, what can be done? So you see, these are real life situations that you have to already know this thing. You have to learn these things so that, let's take for example, if you're having a player, and let's say the player is to be sanctioned for maybe let's give a listen. It should be sanctioned for a disciplinary offense, or he has failed a drug test, or all those kind of things. You should be aware of the organization. Is it CAS, uh, or or is it the football tribunal who is going to handle the situation? So you have to just know all the department and keep studying, and only by reading the book and trying to answer questions, and that you can get to know these situations. So football agent regulation, first try to read that, because I say 40% of the questions come more on that. The next, I'll tell you that it's also the regulation and the status of transfer of players. We call it in short RSTP. That's the next, which most of the, let's say 30% also of the questions, about 30% of the questions also come on this. So let's say you have 40% on the FIFA football agent regulation, and you have 30% on the RSTP. That is 70%. So, but the thing here is RSTP is about 150 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 150 pages, which you have to read to fingertips. And the thing is, with exam, they can take a question just from a small place. So you don't have to, you cannot speculate, you cannot say you are going to read this place, read this place. You go through all the things, just try to figure out and know a lot of those information in that book. So if you have 70% there, then you start looking at other things, like they give questions on the disciplinary code, the code of ethics. There are a lot of things. So safeguard to kids. How can children be safeguarded from bullying? So all these things also, you have to have a glance for it, so that you can, so that the few questions will come on it, you can get them. You can also pass. And also, those are the topics I'll say for you focus. You have a lot of, you focus on general things, but I'm saying that FIFA agent regulation, RSTP, make sure you know a lot of that. Then the dictionary code, the ethics code, the FIFA statutes, who consist of definitions and all those things, and then also learning about training compensation and solidarity mechanism. You're going to know, I cannot give you details. What is training compensation? What is solidarity mechanism? Those are things that you also should be knowing already. Yeah, that how does training compensation occur? All those things. So those are the things, topics you can focus on. Then next you have to master the format of the exam. As I said in the previous video, the exam is 20 multiple choice questions, but in those 20 multiple choice questions, you are going to have, in those 20, you are going to have a lot of difficulties, because the questions are quite bulky. You should be able to read through that question as quick as possible. So when I say 20 multiple, when I say bulky, what I mean is lengthy. They can give you a question which before you read it, it takes already close to 2 minutes. So reading a question, you also, the next thing, you have to interpret the question. So those are things that also, if I can recall, where there was a question that in the exams, that, or most of the question, they always say there's this academic kit. Like an example, if I can recall the question, they said, example, there's an academic kid who is actually, or there's a 17 years old who lives from Africa, goes for study in Brazil, and his mom is not actually quite happy with him. His mom wants him to come back, and then now there's a professional club who wants to sign him. So all these things are written. That is the question. There's a professional club who wants to sign him. Now he has to bring his, because he's 17 years old, he cannot sign the contract. And now the guardians, the parents, have to move from Africa to Brazil to be able to make the player sign the contract. So all these things are also involved in the question. Then they ask the answer: is this kid allowed to sign this contract if the parents move to Brazil? So the answer to that question can be is no first, but it's a lengthy question. They will also add more things, but the answer to that kind of question, because I'm speaking because I already know, I know a lot of the details and tips. The answer to that question will be no. Why? Because first, the kid moves for what? He moves for reason based on education, and he can only sign with an amateur club. So if a professional club, let's say for example, wants to sign him, is something different also. And also, if he's moving to Brazil, another thing also red flag is that you don't leave your continent at 17 years to move into another country. You must be 18. That's another thing that you check. So this is how the question get complicated. That if you are not smart and knowing the rules and regulation, you say, oh, you just tick yes. So this is how the question is being built. They set a trap for you and see whether you answer the right thing or the wrong. You pick the right answer. So this is how it always goes. But that's just a scenario of a question I played. I imagine how it came some years ago. But this is how the format always looks like. Or they can also give you a question and saying that Mr. A had to sign a 3 years representative agreement with his agent. Or let's say a football player had to sign a 3 years representative agreement with his agent, and his agent took 60%. Took 60% of his salary. So what did you was his agent? Then they start give you the answers. These are just short questions. Was his agent allowed to take 60% of his salary? of a percentage of a salary, which is called commissioning. The question first. So if you look also at the question, that question also, it's quite already from the beginning wrong, the questions. So they try to also set you traps if you fall into the trap, because what FIFA is trying to do is trying to exploit your brain. Do you really know the rules and regulations? So this is just the general package, how the exam comes. It's not that the exam doesn't just come like they just give you uh, this, like for example, a question like a representative agreement with an agent is A, 2 years, B, 3 years, for 1 year. No, the answer there is 2 years, but they don't give you this kind of just clear question that you just say, it's 2 years. No, they try to tweak it and ask you a question that to complicate things. You understand what I mean? So complicating these things, so which means when reading the question, you already have to be able to know a lot of things. And bear with me that it's just 60 minutes. That question is just 60 minutes. The exam it is, and you have to pass 75% of your questions. So which means each question you spend 3 minutes. So to pass this exam, those are the things you have to be looking at, that you have to read, also try to imagine real life situation. That's why it's always good to find a study partner or study with a group. That's very important. Then next, I would say you use a study plan, 1 to 2 weeks. Let me say start studying already. If for those who have not started studying, that the exam is coming in June, use a study plan. Focus on the FIFA agent regulation, which is not too lengthy. And then I think it's around from page 270 to 320, probably like that. It depends on various pages, because the 2024 book is different, the 2023 book is different of the FIFA football agent regulation. I mean, the pages are quite different. So it depends the book you're reading, the study material you're reading. So focus on reading this, getting knowledge, doing past questions. Then next, go to the RSTP, do this, try to understand, do past questions. But again, as I said, you study this, but you need people who have done and gone through this to be able to help you facilitate the move for you. So then probably week 3 or week 4, you can focus on statutes, ethics code, and disciplinary code, because the disciplinary code and the ethics code actually are almost similar. So the ethics code is about your behavior, the ethics of the player, and all those kind of things. But of course, it still has disciplinary measures in there, same like the disciplinary code. So, and then you can solve past questions. Try to answer a lot of more questions as you can. Then, but the more questions, I will tell you, yeah, they are much easier than how the exam questions will be. The more questions are more direct. I remember also speaking to this to one of the examiners when I was writing that in the more questions, I always had all the questions 20 on 20, and it looks more easy. It looks more easier. And he said, yeah, FIFA does this, but they cannot do anything. So those are the things you have to notice, and also try to start your reading as quick as possible. So that is just one of the few things I wanted to give you. And I would like to go more, but I have a lot of things that I will be doing. Also, I will also come back in the evening with you guys to try to do again another video. So anyways, this was for just a short video, although it's not short, just to help you guys get some knowledge on how the FIFA agent exam is being put and how you can try to navigate your way through it. Okay, I'm hosting the course, a course starting today. For those who have registered and for those who have paid, we will start today. And also, I'll be seeing how the course goes, and then, but I'll be updating people. And for those within this week, we are starting on this Tuesday. So for those who have not registered for the course, if you miss one lesson, it's not that bad, because you can still get highlights for this weekend. Yeah, but missing 2 lessons will be more difficult. So we had to catch up with it. So anyways, that's it, and we speak to you, or I speak to you soon. Take care and have a nice day. Cheers.